Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today, I wanted to have a bit of a conversation. One of these more non-board game, introspective conversations that I enjoy having on the channel from time to time. And if you enjoy this type of content, I've actually been doing videos like this every single day for about a month straight now. On entrepreneurship, starting something new, how you build community, and personal stories and life lessons I've learned along the way. So the link for that channel will be at the very top of this video description. If you enjoy this content, swing over there, hit the subscribe button, support our new project, and join me for a wider conversation about life, about what it means to be working on something and pursuing your dreams, and hopefully pursuing and finding happiness, or at least making the suffering that exists here in the world less by making and investing and creating a more beautiful place. So in this video, I wanted to have a conversation about something that's been on my mind for the past year or so. The idea of having truths. The idea of having principles that are so true to the way that you formulate and live your life that you conform everything about your being to them. And when you find that you are not conforming to them, when you find that you have, lost the path or gone down a direction that keeps you from pursuing and investing in those core principles, those truths, you have to reframe or redesign the way that you approach the world, the way that you approach the interactions that you have, the communities you're a part of, and the way that you're building and preparing for the future. And this has been something that's been on my mind not only over the last year, but also recently, as I've been talking over on the other channel about building community, about investing in people. I am immensely grateful for the audience that we have, for the community that we have here. And so with that in mind, as we build towards service, as we build and seek out a platform that allows us to invest and lift up voices and be a part of this space, I thought it would be important to share with you and have a conversation with you about three things that I personally hold dear, that I form my life around. And I'd love to hear from you. Has this been something that's been on your mind in the past, or is the idea new? And can you search through the way that you act or interact with the world and find truths that you believe in? Not only with your mind and words, but also with the application, with the way that you live your life, the way you try to approach the world. So that's the conversation today. I hope you enjoy it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts around it as well. The core concepts, the three principles I want to go over, are going to be as follows. Don't be malicious, ever. Don't be a hypocrite or engage in hypocrisy, which is the idolation or the enjoyment of being a hypocrite. And if you want to have an impact on the world, if you want to make things change, it starts and ends with the person directly in front of you. Those are the three things I believe, that I'm doing my best to form my life around, that I believe this community represents and I want to hold dear. So, let's dig in a little bit. First off, don't be malicious. Now, what is malice? What is the act of being malicious? And I use that word very specifically and very pointedly because it does not mean don't hurt people. It does not mean that we're going to be infallible, that we're never going to sin, as a religious phrase would say. Instead, it talks about the act of targeting. It talks about the act of purposefully trying to do harm, to tear others down for the sake of lifting or building yourself up. It is revenge. It is ambition driven by malice, right? That's the cornerstone that I'm talking about. Now, people, humans, are imperfect in a variety of ways. I myself make countless mistakes. Every single day I screw up in one way or another. I have hurt people in the past. I have been depressed and anxious and fearful and gone out of my way to be malicious in the past. It's easy to do so. It's easy to find excuses, right? Well, they did this to me. They were this. They are that. But don't be malicious. There's no intent for it. There's no good that comes from it. You find that you tear yourself down as much as you're doing damage to the other person. You destroy and hurt the communities that are around you. And slowly, you find that those that embraced you, that cared for you, that joined in with your malice along the way, really don't care for you quite as much as you thought. Don't be malicious. Now, people are allowed to have mistakes, to be uncouth, to screw up along the way. They're even allowed to hurt me. I expect that in relationships that I care about, my best friends will along the way. Me and my best friend about 2 years ago had a situation where we genuinely stopped talking to each other for about 6 months straight. But along that route, along that path, along that journey, which I am thankful has been healed, because we're both stubborn jerks, neither of us were malicious. Neither of us sought to do the other harm, used our language as a way to whip or instigate or hurt the other person in the process. I find oftentimes that people that are in pain hurt others the most, that are fearful or sad or depressed. And the reason that's my speculation is because when I hurt others the most, it was when I was in those situations. Recovering and processing my mother's death, dealing with divorce, moving high schools 5 different times, rebelling and vengeful and spiteful as a teenager. I was hurt, right? And so it's understandable. It's not that I don't understand the principle of being malicious. It's not I don't understand the motives and the excuse that go into that. But I don't believe in it. And I do my very best to live a life that is not that. And along that route, when it comes to the community that I exist in, the area and the space that I want to build, the table I want us all to sit at, I believe that principle holds true. I have no room for people who are who delight in malice. I have no patience for people who specifically try to cause harm, to do damage, who are fearful and vengeful, who try to build themselves up by stepping on the backs of other people. I love this community. I'm excited about the space that we have, and I am excited to build an environment and a community and a culture that invites and welcomes every single person that we can. Second point, don't be a hypocrite. This is a word that has been boiled under my skin since I was a child, since I was a teenager, since I grew up in the church. It's been a thing that has always irked me. The idea of being contrary, the idea of being the opposite of yourself, of proclaiming something and then existing in a state, or your actions are existing in a state that are the opposite or the counter or the antithesis of what you're stating. You find it a lot of times in the church. That's why the term is coined and still used today in that environment, right? The pastors that proclaim from the pulpit to be loving and kind, and then you find that they are vengeful and spiteful and restrictive. They encourage you to give generously, and then you find that they hold their dollar back from those that are in need. That idea of being a hypocrite, since I was probably 13, 14 years old, has always been entrenched in my mind. And doesn't mean that I'm not always contradictory. No, every single one of these principles are things that I pay attention to because they're things you have to work at. They're things you have to pay attention to and care about in order to have them represent and dictate your life. But the idea of being a hypocrite, of delighting in hypocrisy, of living a contradiction. I didn't cuss till I was about 19 years old. I didn't use language, and I still won't use language to target or create malice, but I also put such value on the words that I'm saying. Words can be incredibly damaging. They are intrinsically important. And the idea of proclaiming something, of stating something that you're not willing to be or represent, that idea of language, that conversation about that contradiction, that is where it stems from. So, the way that I apply this to my own life, I examine the way I'm living. I invite friends and people who I trust that are in my circles. I invite my community to analyze the way that I am approaching the world. And if they're able to identify the areas in my life where I am potentially living a contradiction, And the moment I find or identify one of those areas, it becomes my immediate task to fix, resolve, understand, learn how to communicate, or analyze that contradiction until I understand why it either has to change or why it is not in fact a contradiction. But I always seek to understand, to diagnose those symptoms. And then finally, a thing that it's probably been 3 or 4 years now, but a thing that has coalesced over the course of 2020. The idea of having an impact, of having real and lasting change on the world, an idea of life with purpose, and the way that you can live a life that actually does something good. Not the ambient toss a dollar here into a pot and hope it changed someone's life, not the every now and then I put up a video that talks about something nice and good and wholesome, but I live my life another way. I mean really having a change and an impact on this world. If you believe like I do, that we're on a journey, that life is punctuated by tragedy and suffering, that the course of our life has some degree of purpose, of point, that if anything, you could spend your existence doing your very best to make the world a more beautiful place and to make others slightly happier, or at least more comfortable in their suffering. If you believe in that like I do, then the conversation then comes to how. How can you have an impact? How can you truly have an impact on the world, on the communities around you, on the people that are right next to you? Because ultimately, that's where the impact needs to happen. And so this is what I believe. If you truly want to impact the world, it starts and ends with the person directly in front of you. It's how I treat the conversations that I have here on camera. It's how I treat the relationships that I have around the table. It's how I do my best to facilitate and invite and have a space that allows anyone to reach out to me at any time. If you're watching this video, please know, if you're part of my community, I may be slow to respond from time to time. I get overwhelmed as well. It is hard to keep up with the degree of messages, but I welcome and invite you to text, to call, to set up a game with me, to reach out if you're in need. I don't think of this as an audience of 20,000 people, or as hundreds of people watching this video. I hope that one person listens to it. And honestly, as I'm talking, as I'm thinking through what I'm saying, I'm responding and engaging with one of you. And so, if you really want to have an impact on the world, it starts and ends with the person in front of you. What does that mean? It means that not only the greatest degree of impact you can have starts with the person directly in front of you, your neighbor, your loved one, the cashier at the grocery store, the person watching directly behind the camera. It starts with one-on-one interactions, relationships that are built and established. It starts with investing in each other, of caring. If we all did that, think about the type of world that we would have. If 5% of us did that, think about the type of world we'd have, because that ripple effect, that cliche, right, of one small action transforming the earth, it's not so far away from the truth. Maybe your smile, maybe your kind word, maybe your moment of understanding, maybe the $20 you gave a friend in need, maybe that does enough to change their experience, reduce their suffering, allow them to do the same to others, and that time after time after time again, relationships you've invested in, people you've cared for, communities you've built, maybe that is enough to make the world a better place, a place where we care for each other, where we're not malicious, where we don't live in a hypocritical state. But along with that, why do I say it ends there? I say it ends there because not only is that where you can have those interpersonal relationships, the person directly in front of you, not only is that where you can have the greatest impact on the world, but it is also where you can have the most impact, the most important impact. It is the most accessible, and it is also the greatest. It starts here. If you want to create change, it starts there. And it ends there. Because as you invest and build, that spreads, and the impact of that one little relationship translates into every experience and action you have throughout every single day you're alive. We're not all perfect at this. Oftentimes I forget to care or listen or discuss, or oftentimes I forget to communicate the way that I should. I'm not perfect at any of these things. It's why I'm learning. It's why I'm processing. I'm a fallible human. We all are. But I believe in these principles. I'm willing to tell an audience that I will hold to them. And I encourage you to think through what you believe in, what type of community and world you want to build, what type of relationship you want to have with those that are near you. Because that's what I'm doing. I have for a while, and I'm continuing to do so. I appreciate you being here. I'm madly in love with this community, and I cannot wait to continue these conversations. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I've been having conversations like this over on my personal channel for the better part of a month now. There's probably 20 or 30 videos over there, maybe not quite that much, maybe 20 videos over there that you can check out. For the better part of a month now. So swing over to that page, hit the subscribe button, and join me with this conversation. And someone has started chopping a tree and maintaining this habitat. So I think that's going to be the end of this video. Whatever the case, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.